Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Brain Gut Connection podcast. I'm your host, Dave Brethauer, and today we're embarking on an enlightening journey through the mind gut connection because who knew your stomach had so much to say? Today, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today, Duncan Brown. Duncan is not just an author and speaker, he's a connoisseur of all things alcohol related and a passionate advocate for living a vibrant, sober life. After a transformative journey from heavy drinking to embracing clarity and wellness, he wrote Real Men Quit, a no nonsense guide at helping others break free from unhealthy habits. Today, we'll be diving into his insights on how alcohol affects our gut health and mental state. And trust me, you don't want to miss this. So grab a seat, maybe a glass of water. We're keeping it clean today, and let's get into it. Welcome to the show, Duncan. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for having me. I'm looking forward to it as well.
Yeah, this should be fun. So let's start off with your book there, Real Men Quit. Can you give us your journey from where you're at to what led you to write the Real Men Quit book?
Yeah, so the thing that really got me to write the book was gut, in the sense of strength and willpower and intestinal fortitude. I mean, not mine, obviously. No, I worked with this guy, and he was in the Royal Marine Commandos, and that's, just in case your listeners don't know, the longest infantry training course in the world. And that wasn't really enough for him. He excelled as a commando, but he moved on and he joined the Special Boat Service, which is kind of the British equivalent of the Navy SEALs. So, he was a very well, he had a lot of guts. I mean, he had a lot of strength and a lot of willpower and a lot of determination. Unfortunately, because of the life that he lived, he literally spent his military career in a very work hard, play hard kind of environment. He was exposed to an awful lot of drinking, and when he came out, he sort of thought he had a lid on it, but actually, a couple of things happened, and his life got a little bit tougher, and he found his drinking was really getting a bit out of control, which is when I met him. And he was a lovely guy, and literally everything else in his life he had sorted out. He had it all squared away apart from the alcohol. It was the one thing that he couldn't get under control. And that really got me thinking, this is somebody who obviously has a lot of willpower, a lot of strength, a lot of guts, but he wasn't able to just tough his way out of drinking. He just wasn't able to get that under control the way he'd got pretty much everything else in his life under control. And that really kind of hit home a point for me out alcohol, that the reason why we get caught up in it is not weakness. It's often very, very strong people that get caught up in it. And I think there's often a lot of shame about it. There's a lot of shame for men to admit that they've got a problem, that they don't have anything under control. And I want to share his example because, if somebody like that can get caught up in it, if it's somebody that strong, somebody that tough can get caught up in it, then we all can, and there's no shame on that.
It's the story of this gentleman, his journey.
No, no, he was really the starting point that got me to actually get off my bum and do something about it. I've had it in the back of my mind for a while that there's a lot of great books about, rebalancing your relationship with alcohol out there. But the majority of them are written by women. And while they resonate a lot with me now, they certainly wouldn't have resonated quite so much with me when I was drinking. So I wanted to write something that was specifically for men, really with just a lot of sports references and a lot of bad jokes and a lot of James Bond and Star Wars and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, something that kind of tries to meet men where they were.
Okay, so what was the pivotal moment in your life that led you to change your habits?
Yeah, I'm always a little bit skeptical about, that kind of 4 a.m. staring in the mirror moment that so often comes out in these types of stories. I wish now, you're kind of looking back on it, I wish I could have clarified everything in that kind of a single moment. But for me, it was a couple of months, really, a couple of months of really hard thinking. And I can tell you what I was thinking now, looking back on it, but at the time, it wasn't quite so clear. You see, what happened was my wife and I, we've been together for a little while. We had a place, we both had jobs, in one kind of way of looking at our lives, we were doing very well. I was pretty successful. Everything seemed to be kind of rosy in the garden, and we just decided to do the natural thing. That kind of age, we thought, oh well, we'll have kids, we'll start a family. Great idea. And that was a lot of fun. Well, I mean, the trying bit was a lot of fun. And then of course she got pregnant, and we turned instantly transformed into that completely naive, stupid couple that's got no idea what they've let themselves in for. And it was all, it was fantastic. It was all really, really good until she had a miscarriage, and very suddenly it wasn't really, really good. It was actually incredibly terrible. And that's what kind of sparked this couple of months of me just, looking at myself and saying, trying to work out what I wanted from life. What was I supposed to be doing with myself, because I'd obviously, in my mind, in some respects, I'd failed as a father. I was in the process of failing as a husband, because, having a miscarriage is incredibly hard for women, physically, emotionally, and mentally. And I just was not there for her. My default response to everything was open a bottle of wine and pour myself into it. So, I really wasn't being the partner that she deserved. So yeah, there was a lot of soul searching, and like I say, it never really crystallized itself into a single question. I mean, now I know I was asking myself one question, what is it that I want from life? Do I want another drink, or do I want a family? And the good news is I did make the right decision. I stopped drinking. And yeah, almost 9 months to the day after I stopped, our little daughter was born. And, that was fantastic
Congrats on
for
that.
about 10 minutes. And then it introduced a whole other world of problems into my life. But, those are largely good problems, aren't they? They're kind of problems I like having.
So you were you able to just, turn it off, cork the bottle and walk away?
In one respect, yes. In another respect, not quite so. I mean, I think if you sort of like looked at me, you would have thought that was what I did. But what I did was I got to grips with my beliefs around alcohol. And I did that whilst I was still drinking. So I didn't stop drinking until I'd got to the point where I really did not want to drink anymore. I got to the point where I believed that alcohol was providing me with no benefit, that it wasn't helping me to socialize or be creative or deal with stress, or all of, that head junk that a lot of people have, that I certainly had when I was drinking. Once I got to the point where I no longer believed it was doing anything for me, that was when I stopped. And then it was very, very easy. I just walked away from it because I didn't want to do it anymore. And it's actually surprisingly easy to not do stuff you don't want to do.
So do you have any strategies you can recommend for anyone looking to cut back on their drinking?
So cutting back is a little bit harder. I mean, it is possible, but I do kind of have to issue a slight warning on that. I think there are some people for whom it is impossible to cut back. There are some people who have gone a bit too far in that direction, and the only real way they're ever going to get any control over alcohol is by not drinking it at all. I was certainly in that position. Now, if you spend 15, 20 minutes with me, I can tell you whether you're in that position or not. But just general advice on a podcast is a bit harder. So I would say, yes, you absolutely can cut back. There's loads and loads of really, good strategies. One of the things I recommend all of the time is don't drink alcohol the first drink or the second drink. Have an alcoholic drink for the third drink. That way, if you were drinking just because you are hungry or bored, then that has, disappeared. And a lot of people find that when they do that, they never actually get to that, then wanting that third drink, that alcoholic drink. So that's a really good strategy. You can be a bit more kind of aware of what you're drinking. So drinking it kind of mindfully, if you like, and actually, paying attention to it. So much of what we do in life is absolutely automatic, and we just drink because Netflix is on, or we drink because it's Friday, or we drink because we're with those people. If you actually kind of like sit down and rather than just grabbing a beer and not thinking about it, actually try and savor it, try and enjoy it, try and notice that you're drinking it. That has the added bonus, of course, of not simply limiting the amount you drink, but actually increasing the pleasure that you take from it. And that's what a lot of the strategies that I recommend, they revolve around not simply minimizing the risk from drinking alcohol, but actually maximizing the pleasure. There's a guy called Chris Bailey, has written a couple of amazing productivity books, and one of the things I like that he does is he only drinks when he genuinely believes it will enhance the situation. So that's genuine celebrations, and that I think is a real key thing to kind of get into our minds. A lot of the time I say it's like we drink because it's Friday, because we're with those people, because we're having dinner or whatever, but that's not a real genuine celebration. So if you actually only drink at genuine celebrations, you're probably not going to drink more than about twice a month, unless you're having a really good month. And he never drinks the same thing 2 times in a row. He always actually sits down, looks at the menu, sees what they've got on offer, thinks about it, thinks about what he's eating, if he's having dinner, how it might complement that, and actually chooses something different. So it's kind of brought this spirit of adventure and discovery into what he does. He tries a lot more new things rather than just automatically reaching for that drink that you drink every time.
My personal story is I was came out of the service. I was in the service, and you're bored out of your gourd. Drinking just seemed to be something that everybody was doing, so peer pressure type of thing. Get out of the service, start college. Of course, it's always about the Friday night frat parties and stuff. Continued that, and when my kids came out, I was standing over the sink looking at a pile of hair, uh, and realizing that not only was I losing my hair, but I needed to change my life. So I embraced some technology that got me to stop drinking beer like that. Today, if I smell a beer, I will get physically ill. But I didn't do that same technique with wine and alcohol. And so I found, I started drinking wine and hard liquor. And then woke up one day and just realized I can't be doing this anymore, and was able to stop. Did the AA, which I found to be beneficial at the beginning, but then it was just oh, woe is me kind of bitch fest, if you will. I didn't find value in that at that point in time. But yeah, for me, it was a struggle, and I don't see, people who can. My experience with the people I've dealt with is that the old adage, one drink is not enough, and a thousand is no. One drink's not enough, and a thousand no.
One drink
One
is too
drink's
many, 1,000 is not enough.
Thank you. I knew that was in there somewhere.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, that seems to be most people's mindset. And I don't, is it a disease, an illness, psychological? What do you think
So
is the
for,
basis?
for my money, it is a development problem. So I think what most people have done is they have taught themselves to drink. They have taught themselves to respond in a certain way. So they've kind of created what you might call associations, or you might call a form of programming, but they think if football, then beer, if dinner, then wine, if Friday, then drink, and they create all of these kind of like situations where they drink in, and then they get into those situations, so they drink in them, and they don't even think about it. It just becomes absolutely automatic. So for me, the solution to that is, of course, to teach yourself not to drink, and that is to get to grips with all of the head junk that goes with it, and particularly around the beliefs. So everybody has a lot of beliefs about alcohol. Even people who don't drink believe certain things about alcohol. Often they aren't actually true. It's just that society in general, advertising in particular, and the wider media, films, television, streaming services, they depict alcohol in a certain way, and people learn a lot of things from that. So most people think that a cocktail will make you look sophisticated. It's like, is that actually true, or have you just watched too much James Bond?
Yeah. Yeah.
So helping people to really get to grips with those beliefs that underlie their drinking. And one of the interesting things that I've noticed about people who've been through group programs like AA is often they will sort of subconsciously do a similar sort of thing. The problem with just sort of saying, oh, it's really, really bad for me, it's doing lots and lots of bad things, is your brain is kind of programmed to forget bad things. I mean, it doesn't always forget bad things. I appreciate the role that trauma plays in memory and all of that sort of stuff. But in general, we try and minimize the things that are bad. We try and forget those. So if you only work on why drinking alcohol is bad for you, that tends to dissipate over time. The further you get from the point when you're drinking, you stop thinking it was quite so bad, and you start to remember what you believed was good about it. Now, what you believed was good about it was actually often just the situation you were in. You had fun because you were at a party. You were relaxed because you were having a nice dinner. It wasn't actually alcohol that made the party more fun. It wasn't alcohol that made the dinner more relaxing. It just happened concurrently. So we remember all of those things that weren't actually true, and that's what we kind of jump onto. So there are various different ways of removing those beliefs, and I've seen people do it effectively. I mean, particularly Smart Recovery, that is a group program where they explicitly do a lot of that sort of stuff. But I've seen that happen with people working through AA as well. I've seen it happening with people working with therapists and with coaches, and actually just if you happen to be particularly reflective, I've even seen people get to that point on their own.
So let's take a step back for a minute. So you're alcohol recovery coach? How would I describe you? Or how would you
Yeah, so I mean, I do work one-to-one with people. I work with people around alcohol. I work with people around smoking. I also work with people who have stopped drinking and want to remain sober. So yeah, I mean, sober coach, alcohol recovery coach. I'm not mad keen on the word recovery. What I found is most people don't want to recover what they had before they started drinking. They want to build something new. So yeah, sober coach is the one that I'd use.
your experience, what are the key signs that someone might need to reassess their drinking habits?
What? So there are all these like quizzes on Google where you can go and find out whether you're drinking too much or not. And I always think they should only have one question in them. Are you Googling, am I drinking too much? If yes, then you should probably consider, drinking less. And honestly, if you think you're drinking too much, then you are. It's like, it is literally that simple. The vast majority of people that drink too much. Very few people drink at that low risk, high pleasure drinking area. Most people drink more than they should. Even the ones that will swear blind, they hardly ever drink. So yeah, I mean, the statistics bear that out. 72% of drinkers, when surveyed, said they wish they drank less. It's like that's nearly 3/4 of people. So yeah, if you're worrying about whether you're drinking too much or not, you're probably right. And it would be a good time to seek out a little bit of help, whether that is help to just rebalance your relationship with alcohol and get you, away from drinking at a slightly elevated risk back down into that low risk area, or whether you are just drinking flat out too much. And really, the best thing for you to do would be to take a break, and probably a long one.
But let's talk about common misconceptions that people have around alcohol and its effects.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest misconceptions is the idea of what moderation is. There's some research done recently where they asked people what moderate alcohol consumption looks like. And a considerable amount of people basically will define moderate drinking as anything that doesn't involve putting vodka on your cornflakes. I mean, like, actually, some of the people would have defined me as a moderate drinker because I never drank. I very well, not never, but I very rarely drank before about 8:30, 9 o'clock every night. I worked, hard. I was pretty successful. I worked hard throughout the day. I'd come home. I was involved in my community. I often go to meetings in the evening. I'd come back from those and I'd drink a couple of bottles of wine. But there are many people who would kind of look at that and think, well, you only drink in the evening. Can't be that bad, can it, Duncan? So yeah, I think moderation is the biggest misconception, what moderate drinking looks like. And to be fair, I'd say governments don't really help. What has happened over the last sort of 20 years is various governments have made various recommendations as to what they think the lowest risk level of drinking looks like, and they vary quite substantially. If you're in Scandinavia, low risk drinking is about 7 times less than Canada. It's just like ridiculous. So, there's not a kind of consistency of message about what low risk drinking looks like. And then they always talk about, grams of alcohol. And I don't know about you, but I never drank a gram of alcohol. It's no idea what they talk about. So I think we need to simplify the way we talk about it, make it easier for people to understand and help them to, sometimes people want to appreciate the science that sits behind that, to know that actually there is this increasing body of evidence that basically says anything more than one drink a day is not a good idea. Whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, doesn't really matter, which is why we tend to sort of like talk about the 1-2-3 principle. So that's 1 drink a day, no more than 2 drinks a week, and no more than 3 weeks a month. That gives your body adequate rest and recuperation to get over the effects of alcohol. And that in my opinion, is unquestionably low risk. It's going to have a low impact on you as well, which is something else that people don't really talk about, the impact of alcohol. And it's also going to increase your enjoyment because the science is quite clear on this. The positive effects that you get from drinking alcohol disappear after the first drink, and that is when the negative effects start to kick in.
Let's dive into the effects. How does drinking alcohol impact the brain gut connection?
Well, yes. I thought you were just going to say how does it impact you? Because I was like, how long have you got? I mean, what do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about sleep? Do you want to talk about inflammation? No, you want to talk about the gut. Okay. So there's a couple of ways that alcohol really affects your gut. Particularly, it affects your microbiome. And I'm sure your listeners, they're pretty clued up people, and I'm sure they understand that, the food that you put into your stomach, it affects your microbiome quite a lot. And while most people are starting to appreciate that, many of them have forgotten that the way alcohol gets into your body is through your mouth, and therefore it goes into your stomach. So yes, it has a pretty profound and very negative effect on your microbiome. So that's the first thing. It's not going to encourage the right kind of bacteria in your stomach. It's going to do the exact opposite. It also tends to make your gut leaky. So it tends to make it more permeable, which is not good. Your gut is meant to be watertight for a reason, because there's a whole lot of nasty stuff in there, which is kind of useful, but you want it to stay there. You don't want it actually getting out. And that's one of the things about alcohol. It weakens gut lining and the walls and all of that sort of stuff, and therefore gives you leaky gut syndrome, which is not a very pleasant thing. And it means all of those nasties, they escape into your body, even in relatively small quantities. That can be pretty hazardous. So yeah, it has a big effect on your gut. It has an enormous effect on your brain as well. So you can look at any kind of neurotransmitter you pick. If it's a positive neurotransmitter, it will probably reduce the amount of it in your brain. So you could look at, I don't know, cortisol. Well, that's not actually a neurotransmitter, Duncan. Well done. Yes, it's a hormone, isn't it? But again, your switched on audience are tutting at me because they know that Cortisol is the stress hormone. Now, most people believe that alcohol helps you to deal with stress. It helps you to relax and all of that. And of course, if that was true, alcohol consumption would be correlated with lowering cortisol levels. But of course, it's the other way around. Every unit of alcohol that you drink increases your cortisol levels by about 3%. Oh, I said units, like grams of alcohol. That's not really helpful. So let's think, most beers, most glasses of wine, they're 2.5, 3 units. So what's that? Quick bit of maths, that's 7.5, 9% increase in your cortisol level just from one drink. Not particularly good. Have a couple and you're knocking on the door of 20%, aren't you? Again, you look at positive stuff like serotonin, linked with empathy and positive feeling and emotions and all of that sort of stuff. What happens when you drink is you get like a spurt of that, but your brain doesn't really like these big spikes. So it pushes it in the other direction to attempt to achieve some sort of balance, which means when you wake up in the morning, you are paying for that that slight squirt of positive feelings in the evening, and you wake up next morning feeling a little bit not yourself, not quite as empathetic as you might be. It has a big effect on relationships. So yeah, I mean, any area of health that you want to increase, then alcohol will do the opposite.
So would you consider alcohol just to be corrosive substance or a poison to the system?
Oh, I mean, it's a poison. that's that's not my opinion. That is a cast iron scientific fact. Yeah, I mean, the safest level of drinking is the safest level of consumption of any poison, which is don't do it, dude. That being said, it is pretty much ingrained in our culture, isn't it? So for some people, they want to continue to drink it. They see other benefits of it aside, that outweigh their health impacts. Personally, I don't really buy it. I think the world would be a much better place if alcohol didn't exist, but it does. So what are we going to do about it? I don't know. Try and help people to understand it, just to put in context how, poisonous and toxic it is. If you wanted to introduce it today as a food additive and you put it through the food additive regulations, then you'd find that the safe maximum dose would be about, I was going to say 2 units. It would be about 1 drink a year. That would be the safe maximum dose for a human being, is about 1 drink a year, which means if you want to stick it in like a cake or something like that, you would be, it wouldn't be milliliters you'd be putting in. It's the one smaller than that. It's like drops. That's the amount that you'd be allowed to put into food if alcohol was invented today.
Allowed on the market, right? Because of its corrosive effect to society across the board. So let's talk about how can people cultivate a positive mindset when transitioning off of alcohol, away from alcohol?
So I mean, mindset, I think, is, absolutely where it is at. The most important thing is to realize that you aren't missing out, that you are not getting rid of something that is joy in a can. You are getting rid of something that has been dragging you down for years. And that, leads naturally on to this idea that not just me, but most of the people that I know in the sober sphere, in the community and everything, all we want to do is point out that we actually have a lot more fun now. Our lives are much more fun. And maybe it's difficult coming from the point of being a heavy drinker to actually believe that your life is going to be more fun. But, however preposterous it sounds, if you can kind of cling on to that idea that you're not actually getting rid of all of the fun and you're not going to suddenly become really, really boring and dull, that you are actually going to enjoy your life and you're going to continue to, be sociable and do all of the things that you want to do, really kind of embracing all of that. I think that makes such a difference, because most people, when they stop drinking, they think they're losing out. They think they're missing something. They think this wonderful benefit or pleasure is being taken from them. And it really isn't. It is not like, well, I mean, if you if you watch the adverts, you literally would believe the personification of alcohol is some amazing, beautiful blonde lady in a bikini who is just like fun to be with. That is the perception that the alcohol industry would have you believe about alcohol. But that is not who you are breaking up with. You are breaking up with somebody who's been abusing you for years, who hasn't been supporting you, who's been undermining your efforts to live the kind of life you want to live and be the kind of person you want to be, and on top of that, they don't look great. So yeah, I mean, if you can realize that you're not being dumped by your dream woman, but you're actually leaving an abusive relationship, I think that sets you up in exactly the right kind of way.
Great take on things. Myself, I came to realize how much time and energy, number one, the hangovers, right? You waste the evening, usually into the wee hours. You don't get any sleep. You go to work, you're hungover. Takes you one, two, depending on uh, how much you consumed, 3 days to recover, where you're back to actually where you're normal, and then you pick up and start all over again. It was a vicious cycle. And I woke up one day and realized that I no longer wanted to be in this, as you say, abusive relationship. I didn't look at it that way, but I can see now where that exactly was what I was involved in. And
Yeah. No,
I no longer, I have fun, right? I don't need a drink to be the gregarious individual I was, but I was two people, right? I would either be a fun guy, or I would never be asked back because I was such a, you know, mean person. There was
yeah.
never nothing in the middle. It was either a fun guy or mean. Uh,
I think what you kind of hit on something there. I used to think I wasn't a morning person. I used to think I was useless before midday and about 17 cups of coffee. And, just to prove how much things have changed, I got up at 6 o'clock this morning. I ran 8.5 kilometers. Oh, blimey, I'm going to have to tell you how much that is in miles. That's like, it's probably about 5 miles. I don't know, it's a long way anyway. Yeah, I'd done 3 hours worth of writing. I'd taken my daughter to school. It's like, oh, I got quite a lot done before 12 o'clock. So yeah, if you're wondering whether you're a morning person or not and you're drinking, then maybe you are a morning person. You're just doing everything in your power to make sure you don't enjoy the mornings. Who knows? Who knows what you'll discover?
yeah. Capturing all that loss, well, you can't recapture lost time, but providing yourself with the opportunities to have additional time, whereas before it would have been lost, has changed my life. I'm a much better person. My life is so much better. It was, the impacts I had on my family, on my other relationships. And again, you stand here and you look back and, woulda, coulda, shoulda. I am where I'm at because I believe I'm right where I should be. But man, it was a hell of a journey to get here, and not a fun one a lot of the times. So let's talk about, what advice would you give someone who feels overwhelmed by the idea of quitting alcohol?
So, I get that. I do. I really, really understand it. A lot of the people that I deal with, they have a lot of fear about changing their behavior. At least at the start, they have a lot of fear and they have this tiny little bit of excitement. They can sort of somewhere far off see that maybe actually there is a better future for them and that there is a way out. But it's mostly fear because they feel like they're trapped, like there is no other way of getting free. And I think what that's why getting to grips with your beliefs about alcohol can be so enormously powerful. Because when I first meet people, they believe that they depend on alcohol. They believe that they can't make their life work without alcohol. They can't socialize. They can't handle stress. They can't be creative. They can't be funny. They can't build relationships, whatever, all of this stuff. They believe that they just can't make their life work without alcohol. And as we go through the process and as we talk about it, and as I help them to sort of like dig into all of those ideas and ask themselves, is it true? And is it helping and is it serving you? Once we really get to grips with all of those, they start to see little by little that actually they could do that without alcohol. And then they'll see they could do that without alcohol. And they slowly start to realize that they could make their life work without alcohol. And the more they do that, the more the fear goes down and the more the excitement goes up. And, look, I would encourage anybody who's thinking about making that change just to look around and spend, I don't know, 10 minutes on social media. Just Google sober influencers or something like that. You'll see so many people that have done it, and they found a way. You can find a way. And all of those people that have done it, incidentally, they all want to help you do it because it has made such a huge impact on their life that, it's brought them peace and joy and energy and focus and just, life. And that is what they want to share with you. So go and find a few people who've managed to turn their life around and ask them how they did it. I guarantee you they'll happily tell you because they want to share that. I didn't quite catch that. You went a bit quiet.
Village.
Oh, there you go. No, I can hear you again. Sorry.
My audio's technology, man. So the comment was it takes a village, right? You gather people who are like-minded. Your drinking buddies, they were there for a reason, right? They supported your drinking. Now you need to find people who are sober who can support your soberness, right? In a nutshell. So I got one last question here for you, and you may have already addressed this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So let's pick one piece of advice that you can give to the listeners to take away from today's episode.
You are enough. You have absolutely everything inside you that you need to lead a fruitful, meaningful, enjoyable, wonderful, exciting life. You don't need alcohol. Actually, there are a few other things you don't need, like junk food and social media and cigarettes, because you genuinely have everything inside you that you need to, to blossom and to be amazing and to do all of the things that you really yearn to do, because you are enough, my friend.
Oh, thanks, Duncan. I really appreciate that. So unless you got something else you'd like to add, I'll give you one last chance.
No. That's that's often my closing thought. That's always the thing I'd like people to tattoo across their heart.
Yeah, mindset, right? The beliefs we have formed as a child, the self-conscious and how it dictates. But it is possible to change, right? We can all change. So, okay, well, I'm going to close the episode down. Duncan, thanks very much for your time. I really appreciate you. It's been fun. And for the listeners, we'll be in touch soon. Bye for now.